I awoke this morning with many thoughts flowing around my head, and I wondered if I could just share, almost in a way, an interview with myself. I asked myself, why is this pandemic actually the most amazing pause in my human history for sure, and for many, many centuries? It's actually a time to reflect on our lives, me on mine, you on yours. And so I looked back over my life and I looked at, why were there arguments? Why do people have prejudices? Why are there times when we just don't understand other people, other groups? I was very fortunate because I grew up in a very open-minded, loving family. But it was many, many decades ago, and we were defined by our class. We were very middle class, living in suburb London, and 4 of us, and my parents very loving and very guiding, and we grew up in a Catholic community. And from that base, I learned a lot about love, not particularly about religion or education or all the fun things that we had, but I just learned about love. I learned about being in a loving environment. So I was very fortunate. And for me, dance was a very, very important part of that life. So if I question myself as that young 4-year-old, I think I was, when my mum sent my sister and I to ballet, and I got introduced to the fact that music and my body could actually work together. It was a bit like the discovery that language and conversation were part of my skill set. So in ballet, I learned some of the rigors of control and pointing your feet in the right way, doing the right arm movements, learning the right steps. And in fact, I always longed to break away from that and understand a much more wild, dare I say, exciting dance, what in those days was called modern dance. And as I look back on my life, I realize that all of life is a dance. Now, you might be out there thinking, yeah, but I can't dance. But you can walk, you can move, you can see flow in everything around you. Now, that's really what dance is about. And another major factor for me was the sea, which also is a dance. You watch the sea and it dances. It flows in and out, ebbs and flows up and down the beach. It can get very wild sometimes, and it can be very, very calm. And the same with dance. So one of the things I reflect on now in this pandemic pause is that the dance of life has changed. It had got very frenetic, if you understand what I mean. It was very fast-paced. Everything was now, digital noise, everything, almost so much to watch, and everybody saying, do this, do that, push, push, push. And in fact, dance is a very much more 2 or 3 or 4 or 100 people going in the same direction, but with specific and different energies. So I reflected on an extraordinary dance, the Argentine tango, which started in the end of the 19th century in the back streets of South America, where the mixed communities of African, British, Spanish, Italian, Polish, and obviously Argentinians came together, and they started looking for music that related to the social reality they were facing. And the ruling class, the upper class, didn't really approve of this music because it was wild and it was intimate and it was about people moving together. And our world has got to be very complex over the last few decades. As I watched it and I look at my own life, I realized in talking to myself, I love the dance, but I didn't like conflict. I love music, but I don't like music that's so angry or loud that I can't feel the energy of it. And maybe this pandemic pause for me, and I listen to myself, it's about taking a step back and then a step forward into the dance of life. And one of the things I really reflected on this morning was that I lived a very, dare I say, you may say, privileged life. It hasn't always been easy. I lived in England until I was into my 60s. I was married for 30 years with my first husband, 2 wonderful children, and they're very sound and grown up now. But my life wasn't always the right dance. So I danced away from my first husband into the unknown, into the life of being an entrepreneur and taking risks and really studying people. And there I saw the dance of life getting really quite crazy, especially between men and women, and all the different diversity agendas. The rise of LGBTQ communities, millennials, X-Gen and millennials, digitals, all being different to me. And I thought, wow, this is really very magical. It's actually the tapestry of life. And as we see the dance flowing through that tapestry, I also see arguments and prejudices and stereotypes and limitations and boundaries. And I think the pandemic now gives us an ability to pause and to reflect and see that in the last 2 months, 2.5 months, we have much more compassion and love and togetherness around the world, even though it's facing such an awful common enemy. So I reflected for myself about how people become very violently argumentative about prejudice and what they say are labels that marginalize them. Now, the way I look at it is a label is something that allows us to know what's there. So you go to the supermarket and you see labels which say this is a tin of beans or this is a tin of salmon. You look at the nature of trees and you see that they're all trees, but they're not all the same. So we know they're labels. That's an oak tree, that's a conifer, that's a willow. And we also know that trees are not bushes. It's like in the supermarket, we know that the fresh food counter sells different things to the canned counter. So why am I having this conversation with myself about labels? Because I think we've got almost to the extreme of saying, we must have no labels. Labels and characteristics and types of people helps us to understand each other. And the diversity and the wonderful mixture of people is what we need to really learn about. If the label causes us to marginalize that person or be marginalized, then of course the label is not good. But it's not the label that's not good, it's the action of marginalizing that person or group of people. So what can we do to actually honor our unique and different, beautifully different, unique label? I'm a woman, I'm British, I'm a baby boomer. I have brown eyes, I have silver hair, and I have a certain body type which helps me to understand that in my terms I'm a masculine-minded female. And I designed a map which helps us to all be in one map with each other. So I've not got into those details. Really my point is that we need to get beyond the labels and understand that we are unique and beautiful individuals. And that if we start removing all the labels in the supermarket or in nature, we won't be able to describe the beauty that is there. And the uniqueness describes each of us as human beings. What we have to remove is the toxic behavior about somebody who's different, yourself and in your company, in your family and in society, to love everybody the same. Thank you.